Okay, here's the tools and parts you'll need aside from the 3D printed stuff. So first, you'll need some kind of elastic. I've got 4 number 32 size elastic bands. You can get these from any office supply store. You've then got this tiny spring. You can harvest these from any clicky pen or from the trigger assemblies on your existing Nerf guns. Doesn't matter too much what size it is. A simple flathead screwdriver. As you can see, this one's been used for more than just driving screws, but still good. Some stuff to cut and file your parts. Depending on your printer settings, some fittings might be too tight, so you may have to do some cleanup to make things fit as intended. And finally, some super glue. This thing can fit together without it, but as I'll explain later, there are a few points you'll want to reinforce. So any super glue brand will work. Okay, now that we have our tools, let's get these parts out onto the tray. Nice! Actually, that's way too much stuff. Let's do it one thing at a time. Here's everything we need to make the stock. So, we have our wood fill PLA printed stock pieces. And they don't have to be wood fill and PLA. Here is a standard blue plastic. I've not filed it or sanded it or anything. This is pretty much how it came off the printer, minus the brim on the exterior. And you actually still get that cool wood grain effect. So don't be too picky about the plastics you're using. Cool. And then we have our rod guides. Yep, our butt plate, even more, 3 M5 screws that are 30mm, one 40mm M5 screw, and our dovetail / biscuity thing. This is actually, this little biscuit snack is what's going to hold it all together. So let's start by inserting that. Make sure you've kind of sanded and filed these things to sit flat together. Cool, looks good. And then we take 30mm and insert that there, and that, so that's going to keep all these three at the back together. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot of these long threaded parts here. Okay, then we take the front parts of the stock. We're going to insert these. Now, on a real flintlock stock, these would actually have pins holding them, where these are. And these are still M5, by the way, so if you really want to, you can drill that out, put M5 screws there. I'm not your mother, you can do what you want. I just kind of decided I have way too many parts in this thing already. Okay, we're gonna, should kind of just smack together, yep. Yeah, okay, that should be a relatively tight fit, but that's a good thing. Okay, we have that. That is our stock. We're gonna take another 30mm, or this is a 40mm one, put that in that one. So yeah, that's fine for now. Okay, cool. All right, almost done with our stock. We want to keep that butts sort of dovetail key biscuit snap thing really nice and secure. So we're going to put the butt plate on now. Just jam that on top there. Take a 30mm screw. And then kind of get that right up in there. Yep. That another one. Okay, the stock. Let's assemble the barrel. So, we obviously have the barrel sleeve. This is all one part, but it prints vertically. So I've just did a filament swap so we can have an orange cap on it. The barrel plug, that'll go at the back. Little plate to connect it back to the stock. These two rails, which are gonna hold up this little elastic holder, I guess, which will then attach with the elastics to this. This is the sled that's gonna propel our dart and catch at the back. Be sure to sand that down so that it doesn't slowly break up your elastics. I sanded this one a little too much, but still work. let's start by just, also by the way, you can kind of see these little pins here are going to hold these rails together. You see a little hole there. I'm going to jam some filament in there. There we go. That's good enough. Just to, so that doesn't fly around as much when you open it up later. Okay, just gonna, yep, that's good. Do the other one. Then let's insert the rubber bands, so we might as well just keep this in there to start with. This can be a little finicky, but it does work. So I think you can fit about 4 or 5 of these size of rubber bands in there. You don't have to use the maximum amount of rubber bands every time. Don't have to, you know, hurt people. Like, you're gonna need some eye protection. Do not let children play with this if you're using this much force. Then we've got you. Okay. Once those two are together, just screw that on like so. Yep, just so those are in line. Then keep your fingers here so those rubber bands don't fly everywhere. We're gonna insert this into this. Now, those sides should be flush with the sides of the barrel sleeve, and that will prevent anything from flying out. All right, that looks good. Oh, a little too much filament there. Let's copy you out. Cool. There we go. Then, just slides into there. We'll leave that screw in there for later. Then we have our barrel. So let's just start the lock plate. That's going to hold it all together. We have our mainspring. That's going to be the spring that's going to drive this hammer. Print this in PETG if you can. The PLA one works good enough, I guess. Sear. It's going to connect to the trigger with this pin, which is going to unleash this, which is your tumbler. And then your sear spring, this bridle plate, which will keep all this together. Your frizzen assembly, you'll also need one 20mm M5 screw. You'll need 3 10mm M5 screws. Then you got the hammer. You've got your 2 jewel pieces, your sort of screw for keeping the jewel parts together, big M5 screw, 20mm for holding this down to the rest of the assembly, and a little fitting point that's going to insert in there, connect to there. Let's go with the insides first, the guts. So we get our sear spring, sear like that. The spring only fits one way, like so. You might need to press it in a fair bit. There we go. And then we'll need this. So one side is chamfered, like a little bit rounded. You want to jam that in first. Ah, that was easier than it was last time. Cool. Doesn't need to be tight in there. There's nowhere for it to go. Oh, that's why it was easy. Put it the wrong way in. That way. There we go. Okay. Now those posts should just snap in there. Looking good. All right. Got ourselves a little screw. Just fine. Okay, cool. Then the mainspring. You don't want to keep this under tension all the time. PLA has a habit of just taking on whatever shape it's left in. So yeah, don't leave this cocked. Cool. That's that part done. Then we're going to install the pan block. Just jam in there. That went in easier than every other time I've tried this, so yeah, be prepared to give it a little bit of a bounce. You should just slot in there. Good, you do. Put nice. Yep. Then take the frizzen spring, chuck that on there. Now, this is a really thin set of threads, so it has a habit of coming loose. You may have to super glue this down at a later time. If you want, you can print this part in PETG, but it doesn't actually flex nearly as much as your mainspring. It doesn't really do that much work. So don't worry too much about that. That should be fine. That's more, not quite decorative, but getting there. Okay, almost done. So it's actually easier to screw these together first. You can adjust that later. So let's say about that high. But that looks good to me. Cool. Then that just slots in there. That should be press fit, but you probably will want to reinforce just the bottom one on that dovetail with super glue. And honestly, it'll stay there for a while. It's more if you drop it, that's going to come loose. Okay, then we insert that, and we insert this here. Now, keep in mind, if that's uncocked, sorry, in that downward position, this should be coming in like that. So, kind of should just press right in there. Yes, it does. Actually, for dramatic effect, I've now put in a kind of scrap plastic as some flint with a lever sort of flint holder. Put that back. And then we have ourselves a working lock mechanism. Before bringing it all together, we're going to do the catch mechanism. So we'll take the stock we've assembled, trigger spring, the actual spring, the sear for the catch, the bridle to hold it together, and two M5 times 30mm screws. First, the trigger. I want to put it in like so. That'll slot in there. And then kind of assemble the sear part. So pointing that way, we take the sear, its spring, and its catch. Insert you like so. Just going to take a bit of blue tack, score that right up in there because I'm lazy. That still works. Yep, like so. Okay, beautiful. That's all fitting together. Now we take those screws. Come on, get in your home. Your home. That interior thread is your home. I do have an electric screwdriver, I swear, but you know, this is for you, the viewer, who may not have one. I am making the sacrifice of screwing every one of these damned things in by hand. All right, looks like we're ready to put everything together. So we're going to install that, which you just kind of... There we go. Push in like so. So first, we're going to take one M5 times 10 screw. All right, and then we take a 40mm screw again. And then we do that. Now, I'm not screwing these in all the way. Yeah, oh, yep, that's the golden noise. All right, we're in. Cool. Yeah, there we go. Good. All right, that means it's time for our trigger guard. Note these little square protrusions there. You might need to file those down, but they should come out about right. I'm just gonna really press those in there. That's gonna prevent the trigger from falling back out for whatever reason. So is that screw. That screw plays a much bigger role. Ignore what I just said. And then you're gonna take two M5 times 10 screws, and you're gonna get them in there. You'll find, for whatever reason, I can never get that thread to print right, but they should kind of tension themselves in there. Yep, push that in. There we go. Good. The ramrod. Might as well just chuck that in. Now this is 2 parts. That's press fit. This head and this body's printed lengthwise, head's printed vertically. I accidentally jammed that on there earlier and I can't get it off, which proves how good it is, actually. That's what the takeaway of that. So I'm just gonna slide that in. Now again, this should be a relatively tight fit so it doesn't just fall out, but does pull out nicely. Again, sanding is your friend. You wanna be sanding that down. Okay, might as well also put in, now this is a real important screw. It's not, see, I learned my lesson here. It's not threaded all the way, just the tip there. And this is the only thing holding in your barrel, so you can take it off to change the rubber bands. Again, M5, just gotta put that in there. Now, this one is printed a little larger than it was supposed to be. Oh no, it fits, cool. Good, now the barrel's secure. All right, and then our print in place ring. This is pretty surprisingly strong, and you probably want to put a lanyard against your wee pistol so it doesn't fall off. I'd actually recommend, though, super gluing it in once you get these screws down. And that way you don't have to worry about it coming loose later when you're running around or something. No, that's right, you're a compliant screw. You like screw. Get right up in there. Again, you may want to super glue this butt plate down or this thread to really secure it. Now, let's see if that is a bit easier to screw in. Yes, it is. All my screws should have giant rings on them. Why didn't I think of this before? Okay. Nice. We are almost done, guys and gals. All right, you have your belt slider, hook thing. Now on a real sort of flintlock pistol, this is actually usually 2 parts. You'll have a little side plate and then you'll have a hook, which is nailed on top. I got lazy. Sue me. And your flint lock. So those actually go in the same motion. So first let's put this down. If everything has gone well, that should just slide in there. So it does. Nice. And again, this is where that super glue comes in, and I will actually use it this time because these threads are great for holding something going that way, so pushing and pulling against that, not so great being pulled back out. And unfortunately, if you're going to use this against your belt, that's what's going to happen. Yeah, just a little something for you. We put our nails in to make sure it's all lined up. Should just go on through. Yep. Okay, and now we screw those in. Screw these in lightly, so you probably will sometimes want to open this back up. So make sure your super glue isn't going to hold these screws down. Again, if you have real M5 screws, this is one of the places I'd recommend putting them in, and I've actually made it a little bit more accepting of that. Okay. Just really make sure that's nice and tight. Yeah, okay, it's looking good. So again, this warped a little bit when I left it literally 24 hours in direct sunlight. Well, not all of those hours in sunlight, but you get the idea when I stained it. And the effect of that, as you can see, this little part here is poking up a little bit more than it should. Otherwise, we're looking good. Okay, I think that concludes our build. Let's give it a test shot. Screw you, alcoholism. Looking good.